All right, thank you everyone for coming out. It's an honor to be here up in front of you, and I appreciate the effort that you have all made to not only come out here to Domopalooza, but pick this session out of all the others. We're really excited about it. 5 generative AI use cases that aren't chatbots. I think when this whole generative AI thing came out, obviously ChatGPT was one of the first things that came to mind as far as, hey, what are the use cases for generative AI? But very quickly we started getting asked questions, well, what else can you use it for besides chatbot? And we started getting busy as a product team, building out solutions, building out products so that you could build solutions using generative AI. A little bit about ourselves. My name's Joe Clark. I am the software architect for the Domo Labs team. We own basically the entire AI ML stack from Jupyter Workspaces up to AI chat, and also own a few other features like file sets that was just announced today.
And then my name is Nathan. I've been at Domo for 10 years. I lead our AI sales practice. And what that really means is I get the opportunity to speak with all of our customers, all of our prospects who have some sort of AI initiative on their technology roadmap. That's data science, machine learning, generative AI. I get to hear all those use cases and work together with our product team to make sure that we're aligned with their roadmap.
Thank you. So to kind of get into this again, I talked a little bit about, hey, a lot of people early on were thinking about chatbots. Chatbots have a lot of really important use cases. We have our own AI chat that we love. But today our focus is a little bit more on this other type of generative AI or agentic use case. One where maybe the user isn't directly interacting with the agent or with the AI model, but instead there's some sort of automation going on under the covers that leverages generative AI to extract data, to do batch processing or reasoning over your data. Because this is a beginner track, I did want to spend just a few minutes to go over some of the features that we're going to use in in these use cases. We also have a couple of new features that were announced just this morning, and I just wanted to very briefly cover those. Specifically, when you'd want to use one feature over another. We know that AI and data products start with data, and so that's where I'm going to start as well. We have data sets. That's been the core of our business for a long time. File sets was just announced today. So if you have structured data, like you've always had in Domo, keep with data sets. Data sets are great. If you have unstructured data, if you have images, if you have PDFs or other types of documents, you may want to check out file sets. I think it'll be a great new way to use Domo as a product, not just AI, but Domo as a whole. I think is gonna see a lot of new functionality as a result of these file sets. From an execution standpoint, a lot of these do use our AI services layer under the covers. So that is our feature specific layer. So if you want to switch between different models, you can write your code or build your feature on top of these AI services. We treat these as building blocks for our own features. We've also built them in such a way that you can use them whether you're in workflows or data flows or building your own app. Text generation is our general purpose Gen AI endpoint or AI service. It's great for things like summarization, doing things like targeted sentiment analysis or reasoning over your data. Another one of our workhorse AI services is image to text. So if you have text extraction or image character or optical character recognition use cases, it's really good at extracting. These new LLMs are very good at extracting data from your images. And you can also prompt it. So if you are looking for something specific out of your image, you can prompt it and it will return just the thing that you're looking for. But it's not just about reading text. You can use it to classify images or to annotate or tag your images. Now we're into execution. So we have several places where you can execute or ensure that your code or your use case is being processed. Workflows, we've seen a lot about that today with the Agent Catalyst announcement. Workflows are really great if you need a near real-time solution that processes data as it comes in. It's especially good if you have to make external integrations, if you want to write data out to some third-party system with its code engine integrations. And it's built in order to automate processes, business processes. Data flows, this is another announcement from today, is our new text generation tile inside of data flows. If you have a larger amount of data that it makes sense to process in batch, the advantage of doing that in data flows is that it will be a little bit more cost effective than doing it elsewhere. I know we haven't quite announced pricing for that yet, but I think you'll see a hefty savings if you need to really process a lot of data all at once. The downside being that it's more of an asynchronous process. Lastly, if you're more of a developer like me, you might enjoy building out your code from scratch in something like a Jupyter Workspace. We have integrations with our AI service layer there. We also have a new integration in workflows where you can run a Jupyter notebook as a workflow tile. And then once you've built your solution, the most important thing is to get it in front of your customer. Again, we've heard a lot about this today. You want your customers to engage with it and for that information, the output of those models and that process to actually make an impact on your business. And that's where features in Domo like App Studio and the app dev framework come into play. If you're more of a no-code person, App Studio is a great way to get a lot of value out of the product. The app dev framework, again, if you've got some more development resources and want to build an application on top of Domo that's fully custom, check that out. I won't spend too much time on this slide. I just wanted to call out that those are just a couple of the integrations in Domo that work with AI. There are a lot of features that we've integrated into our product. We're really excited about it. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Nathan to start us off with a few of our use cases.
So you've seen a bunch of tools, and the reality is that Domo has this very excellent AI data product development toolkit. You have all these different options to solve these data problems. And so we just want to show you some applications of all those options. The flow that you're going to hear from me today is I'm going to give you a problem that we wanted to solve for. I'm going to give you a generalized version of that problem because it's not just that problem. It replicates across other types of use cases that follow very similar approaches. And we're just going to walk through the kind of agnostic way to solve those set of problems. Then we're going to walk through the solution. And we're going to talk about some of the values and what we derive from that. So use case one, customer support. On the left side, you're going to see me outline the different components of an agent. And an agent, when we talk about it, you're going to hear a lot of different ways to conceptualize it or describe it, but fundamentally, it needs access to data or knowledge and access to tools. It has the ability to reason, the ability to take action, and generally speaking, it's going to learn or have some mechanism for continuous improvement. So the background for this customer support use case is Domo receives support tickets from customers. They may already have answers in our knowledge base, may already have answers in our community forums, and we had people manually searching for those answers and then responding to the client. The challenges of that is it's time consuming, it's repetitive, it's manual. There's client frustrations if it takes us too long because we got overwhelmed in capacity for fielding all these tickets all at once, or we saw a large spike. Lack of visibility on ticket trends. Sometimes it's hard to classify or extract out, well, what are the topics that people are having frustrations with right now or over the last month versus a year from now or a year ago. And it slows down adoption and onboarding. If it takes them too long to get these tickets answered, it's just going to slow down their ability to adopt the product. And we just want them to have a really seamless experience and get these responses very quickly so that they can keep doing their job. The data sources we need for this, for us, it's Salesforce. Tickets come in through Salesforce, and our knowledge base lives in unstructured documents. I don't know exactly where we store it, Joe might, but we have a reference or index of unstructured knowledge base articles that we want to reference. So the generalized problem is we might have tickets or a process inquiry or a reference search or a regulatory inquiry. And we're basically asking questions about this repository of unstructured data that we have somewhere in our organization. So we need to reference that unstructured data. It could be images, could be documents, could be transcripts. And we need to summarize the response, and we might need to provide the reference documentation. As you heard the the speaker from Filevine today said, these generative AI models are good at suggesting responses or suggesting answers, but we might want a human being to check those answers. And so we might provide a summary response, but we also might provide the relevant reference documentation to say, go read it. It's summarized it for you, but go read it and make sure. And at the end of the line, you might need to display that for a user. We might have a human in the loop, or we might write it directly to an external system. We might just activate against it if we have a high enough degree of trust in the response that's generated. So what this looks like, and I'm just going to go through a number of static images. We receive the ticket in Salesforce. The ticket from Salesforce writes to a Domo data set. We have a workflow that picks up the addition of a new row or rows in that data set, and it runs through a sequence of processes. In this case, it's going to query, it's going to generate a prompt, it's going to generate a response, and it's going to write that back to Salesforce. What arrives at Salesforce is the reference documentation from our knowledge base or community forums, written as a recommended response to the L1 assistant. They can edit this, or they can say, I'm reading through it, it looks good, I believe in this, agree to send. So we're keeping that human in the loop, at least initially. I think at some point we can fully automate this process, but for right now, we just want to make sure that we have automated some of the manual steps required to do this. Another common use case is topic extraction. I say topic, this could be products, themes, classifications, sentiment, categorizations. Any type of structured data you want to pull out of unstructured information within your organization. So the background here is every company that I speak with has some type of unstructured data. Reviews, surveys, tickets, emails, all kinds of stuff. There's useful information in that data. It's been historically difficult to get out of it. You'd have to use custom NLP or machine learning techniques, and it'd be very rigid. It wouldn't handle novelty very well. Generative models get you to the 80% solution very, very rapidly. So traditional approaches, expensive. It just needs to be directionally correct. It doesn't need to be perfect. I just need to see trend lines of what products or services or complaints I'm hearing from customers. You're missing on early trend indicators because it takes so long to do this, and it's very manual that we tend to do it kind of in a review process at the end of a quarter and not proactively where we can say, there's a trend coming where people are complaining about this thing. And it lacks tactical applicability, meaning you don't get very good trend line data. You can't capture the actual standardized data to activate more mitigative strategies. So for us, we scraped some digital channel feedback from Google My Business, and we pulled that into Domo. So we can acquire this unstructured data from web scraping, from existing Domo columns that you have, from surveys, from social media, and we can store it as data sets as part of a column. We can store it in file sets, or we can tag directly on top of your existing CDW or data lake, wherever those unstructured files or images live. We pass them through the AI service layer, and we are extracting out sentiment, classifications, summaries, tags, topics, whatever you want to pull out of it. So this is a workflow where we actually wanted to extract the sentiment and the topics related to that sentiment from these Google reviews. So this is just an example ETL process, and you'll see the highlighted blue, very small tile that says extract sentiment. The first step for us was to extract that out through the instructions below. This text is from an online review for a grocery store. Does the person who wrote this review have a positive, neutral, mixed, or negative view of the store? Output in one word. The next step is to actually identify themes. We know the sentiment. I want to know when was the negative or neutral sentiment related to a specific theme or topic. I want to know what they were talking about. I just don't want to know they're mad. What are they mad about? And so here's our instructions, the text from an online review for a grocery store. Which of the following themes does the person writing the review describe? Service, food options, atmosphere, price, down the list. Output in one word. If they don't discuss any of the topics, output is none. So we're giving it very clear instructions on what we want to get out of this. And at the end of the day, what we have is an iterative test of different prompts that we want to use. And then we do a validation score against human-coded sentiment that we've extracted. We had a human being go in and manually code 400 views, go through that process, and now we have a sample size to validate against. For the end user, what we want to do is we want to take that classified sentiment and say, of negative, neutral, or mixed reviews, what percent identified X as an issue? For this, customer service, facility, lines, etc. And the last prompt we applied was to summarize. I don't want a paragraph or an email. Maybe this customer was very verbose. What's the gist? What were they talking about? What are they upset about? This last one is near and dear to my heart, and it's actually a live demo. I won't go through static images. I don't think it tells the best story. But if we could go to the live demo. This is near and dear to me because I've grown up at Domo. I lived in outbound sales for a long time, and one of the challenging things is maybe I need to reach out to a new account. I need to consolidate a lot of information. Some of that's private information. What are Domo use cases relevant to the account or the person that I'm reaching out to? Some of it's public data. It lives on the internet. They're outlining their strategies. There's news and media articles. Some of it's semi-public. Investor reports and quarterly financial statements that they're legally obligated to put on their website if they're a publicly traded company. I need to take all this information and find out what do I want to talk about with this person that I'm trying to reach out to. So here I've entered a company name, Krispy Kreme. Krispy Kreme, I apologize. Director of Franchise Operations, and I just want to know about what I might talk about for revenue optimization. And down here below, I want to upload a PDF. So I'm going to go into a pre-downloaded quarterly report from Krispy Kreme and load that in as additional context. This will run without the uploaded file, but I want the uploaded file. I want to know what they're talking about to their investors in the last quarter. This does take 30 to 45 seconds to run, so there's some empty airtime here. But what this is doing is speeding up a process that would probably take me 30 minutes to an hour to 2 hours, depending on how deep I wanted to go. And I would need to do this for 40 to 50 to 80 accounts, depending on how many they gave me. What you'll see here is this is very Domo-centric, right? These are the actions that we want to take. I want you to take this application and think about ways that you could apply it to your business, to your specific needs. This is what we wanted. What we wanted was a bulleted summary of that investor relations statement. The company is prioritizing data-driven decision-making and analytics to improve operations. That's great. I want to talk about that. But I also have some relevant use cases that we've collected from Domo's internal private use case catalog, bridge use cases if I want to talk to their peers in other departments. And ultimately, I can get an overview if I click on any one of these that drills me into things I might want to know about that use case for that persona. Common data systems or systems, source systems of data, different metrics they care about, other similar personas. So here, I have a director of franchise operations, it describes their role. Franchise owners describes their role. Regional managers describes their role. What use cases can I talk about? What are their goals? What systems do they interact with? Down here below, it allows me to generate an email that can take any amount of context from any of the data or knowledge I've provided this agent to have, writing directly to an email. I can design a dashboard and outline specific metrics they care about. I can identify an example demo in our demo environment at Domo. I can scan Gong transcripts to look for relevant use cases that have already been talked about with this customer or other similar accounts. Or I can generate a talk track. It generates open-ended questions to help them realize that what I'm talking about could be valuable in their role. So this is very Domo-centric, but this has been an excellent tool for us to speed up that data consolidation process as we reach out to an industry or persona that we haven't spoken to before. So I think that's the end of mine. I'm going to pass this back over to Joe and go through some of use cases.
It's 3 down. We've got 2 more. I put first. Call performance evaluation. So this one's actually something that I can relate to. I worked at a call center when I was going to the University of Utah, just up the road here. You know, they give us, you know, when I started there, they did 3 weeks of training. We took a test to make sure we absorbed that information adequately enough, and then they set us loose talking to customers. And so to help, you know, these companies that run these call centers and work with customer support representatives that talk directly with customers, you know, anytime you call in, you get that notification that they may or may not record, that they will record, and that someone may or may not listen to that recording. And the problem with that is that monitoring calls is time consuming. That's kind of a theme here. Doing things manually can take a lot of time. It's not reasonable. You're not going to be able to listen to every single call that's coming through your support center. And if there is a case where a customer support rep needs a little bit more training or a little bit more attention, that can result in a poor customer support experience. Maybe not as a whole, but at least at individual level, at individual levels, and you can lose customers that way. And if you aren't following, certain regulations, you can also be hit with regulatory fines. For this one, the data that we're using is call transcripts. These could be customer support transcripts, but they could be sales call transcripts. He mentioned Gong. It doesn't have to be customer support at all. It could be, social media where maybe you need to moderate some content, or just keep an eye on, all the times that your company is mentioned, and you want to keep tabs on why it's being mentioned. And so for this solution, we put our data into, I think for this one, we did it with a data set. Again, file sets is new. I think file sets would also be a great place to put that data. We use the text generation tile in workflows to extract information, or in this use case, to grade the support call. And the output of these types of solutions may be a grade for your call transcript. It may be flagging that call transcript so that an individual can follow up and see if we need some additional training, tracking tone, or summarize the call. So I already talked through this a little bit, but I think the important part here that you'll see in a lot of workflows is that we're making it, we're looking at the data, we're using that text generation tile, getting some output from that, and then we're making a decision. Is it flagged? Do we need to look at this, or is it not? And then as a business leader, I really want to be able to see if we're improving. Are we getting better over time? Are we getting worse? And if there are, again, specific data sets or specific entries or calls that need to be reviewed, we can deep dive from this dashboard and see which individuals or which reps need that attention. And the last use case is an invoice processing agent. So a lot of every business has to process some level of invoices. Again, doing that manually takes a long time. Humans make mistakes, especially when you're doing manually entry over and over and over again. Anytime I submit an invoice or a receipt, it has to go up to business leaders. It takes time to approve even the most, even small things. It takes time out of their day. And if you've got a bunch of different vendors, it may be hard for that business leader to know, hey, why are we getting, even though they're the one that's approving it, they may not know everything there is to know about that vendor and what's a reasonable expense and what's not reasonable. And so as data input into this solution, we have invoices, and these may be images or PDFs. And we also might have a history of past invoice data so that we can learn from what a specific vendor has done in the past, and hopefully make smart decisions about what's appropriate for that vendor or for that service. Again, a similar view, similar use cases to this. It could be invoices, it could be receipts. But keeping in mind, hey, we're looking at our image to text model here. It could be that you have a contract and you need to pull out some specific piece of information. Maybe you work in real estate and you want to know what the offer amount is. Or maybe you work in a dentist office and you've got a bunch of old historical records and you need to archive digitally all of your historical records. An important aspect to this that we've called out as well is having a human in the loop. Even though you may, under certain circumstances, want the AI agent to be able to approve these or to review these, There are definitely a lot of cases where you would want somebody to double check and make sure that things are correct. So for this use case, our fictional Modo Corp has created a vendor portal using Domo Everywhere, so each vendor that submits invoices to Modo Corp gets their own view of this dashboard where they can see the invoices that they've submitted in the past and see the status of those, as well as submit new invoices. Forgot to hit play. So as we'll see here, we can see the historical payments as well. And we can just choose the invoice from your local machine. So I have two invoices there. I've got a large one and a small one. So in our workflow, we've put in a little bit of logic that basically says, hey, if it's under a certain amount, again, that could be something I've hard-coded, or it could be something that we look at a vendor's history and made a decision that the AI is going to approve this automatically. Now, from the Modo Corp employee's perspective, let's say a vendor has submitted an invoice. We want to be notified that that invoice is there. I can't remember if you can see it in this video, but the small one actually gets approved automatically. But it's a provisional approval. The status is actually AI approved in this use case. And what that does is it sits there for a week. So if AI approved it, you can still review it, but it doesn't slow anyone down if you don't. And it will be approved after a week and paid out. And if it's a larger amount, then it will sit in pending until an actual human reviews it. Here's our workflow for that. Again, we have a few AI tiles extracting the text from the image. We're making a decision. We're deciding, hey, is this something that I can provisionally approve, or is this something I, as the agent, or something that we really need a human to look at? And that's it. I think we have a few minutes left to do Q&A, quite a few minutes. So if there are any questions, your hand first.
Well, we got a mic.
Oh, we have a mic.
Good hustle, Jeff.
Hey, thank you. I think, well, this is a two-part question. The first one is, are these cases, are we as customers, we're going to be able to do it today, or is this something that is in beta? And the second part of the question is, are these examples part of the pre-built out-of-the-box agents that you guys are publishing?
So first question, is this available today? Yes, many of the components that we've demoed, all the components we've demoed today are available currently in Domo. There are some additional enhancements, some announcements you saw at this conference that add additional options for tools you have for things like reasoning. The Agent Catalyst is one of those. There's a lot of different ways an agent can reason. Agent Catalyst is one of the options you have. And so some of those are releasing in beta or will be made available, but what you've seen today is, correct me if I'm wrong, available in its entirety in Domo today.
I think file sets is coming soon.
Okay.
The text generation tile, I think, is beta. So if you want to use that text generation tile, reach out.
Text generation tile simplifies some of the use cases. They can still be done in Domo now currently, but the text generation tile is going to make it very straightforward.
And then
the second question, sorry.
Yeah, the second question was, is this part of, or these examples are part of the pre-built out-of-the-box AI agents that you guys are publishing? I saw an image earlier today that you guys were having. Like
Pre-built and out of the box, I would say no. These are configured. Domo is the toolbox from which to construct whatever you want. And we can work with you. We're going to see common examples, common applications, and there's going to become templates for these types of agents that are very easy to wire up. I would never say that it's kind of plug and play. We get it off the shelf, we say throw it in Domo, and it's going to work on our data under our scenarios. There's probably lightweight configurations. Our job is to make those configurations as easy and less tedious as possible.
Thank you.
And you might see some of these show up as templates and workflows, or I don't think any of these specifically are templates right now, but I think our goal is to have templates that can showcase similar examples.
Hi, sorry. One question on the example that you show for Krispy Kreme, the outcome. Is that something custom out of Domo and deployed into Domo, or that's something that it's going to be like a tile or a DDX brick or?
That's more of a custom agent. Like
That
I
is a
said, that's
custom
very
agent. Okay.
Domo-centric. It's a
Okay.
combination of tools that you have access to,
Yep.
but it fits our needs.
Got it. Perfect.
The reality is the anonymized problem there is I have data that lives in all these different locations, and I just need to help aggregate, consolidate, and get a unified view of it. And that's all that agent is to show.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for the presentation. You mentioned earlier on the presentation about a lot of these problems are extractable to any industry, most use cases. Is there any plan for Domo to kind of give people some of those use cases templates so that they could kind of quickly move through what has already been patterned out very well?
Sounds like we need to.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's just a great idea.
There's all kinds of business experts, industry experts, technical experts. I do think the agentic catalyst makes it very easy to use the general knowledge of an AI model that you select to provide instructions, and it has that general training and basic understanding of general terms. As it gets more specific, more custom, more nuanced, or you have a very niche business, it might be important to carefully select which model runs that agent catalyst.
Thank you both for the presentation today. A question just on workflows. There's obviously a constraint on how much data can go through a workflow, but yet all the AI pieces we have today seem to be getting that the parameters are getting more and more and more on workflows. So the question is just, let's say we have an extraction of images from a larger deck. Will that be a problem go forward with workflows, or are you building in some kind of ability to directly drop those into somewhere in Domo while the workflow continues?
So that's what file sets I think is going to solve. We're going to have several ways to connect data into file sets. Forms is probably going to be one of those ways. If you want, if you've got a manual person dragging, dropping from App Studio, that would kick off a workflow run. Again, if you have really bulk use cases where you've got just a ton of data, it might make sense to do that in a data flow instead. We have the text generation tile today. I definitely see us having an image to text tile as well as once we get file set support in data flows.
I'll add some context. I think a lot of the applications you saw today are triggered or on demand. And so we use workflows because it's a very powerful tool to trigger and automate those on-demand resources. If we're dealing with very large file sizes or very large amounts of data, it might be ETL because we might be handling as part of a batch process where we can pre-process and really, really control. We don't want to open up to end users the ability to upload, 1 terabyte files and say, parse this, right? That's not realistic. And so ETL versus workflows is kind of scheduled batch versus on demand.
So several of the tools and the use cases that you presented feature the tools, right? The additional context that you can provide the agents. Could you talk a little bit more about the format of those? Like, because you mentioned files. So is it just a PDF you can upload? Is it a prompt specifically? Can you talk a little bit more about the nature of those?
That's kind of why we tried to abstract a little bit away from data types or. These generative models are good at reading unstructured data. That's images, transcripts, text, open reviews, survey. Whatever kind of context you need to provide it, we just need to make sure that we can get access to that file type and we know what data or knowledge it needs awareness of for any given process or orchestration. Does that get to the heart of your question, or am I not quite answering it?
I think so. You're saying it can be whatever format you need it for the most part, right? And it's
We can have universal
use
entry points for whatever operation you need to run. You can have decision trees and workflows. There's different ways to route what it needs to do or equip it with different tools. And those tools might need different degrees of context or different amounts of context.
Right.
And so we'll need to carefully think through that.
Okay. Awesome.
Any other questions? One more.
Hi. So I noticed with the text generation tile, you had a little slider option to get towards more creative, I believe, was one of
Yep.
the terms. So you just speak to what that kind of option is?
Have you heard of temperature?
Sure.
So, from an AI perspective. So that directly controls the temperature that we send the model. And as these models generate one, I'll say word at a time. So, if you ask a question, you give it this amount, this amount of input text, and then it will generate the next word and the next word and the next word and the next word. Moving that slider, increasing the temperature or moving it more towards creative will do is it will introduce a little bit more of an element of randomness. And so your outputs will be a little bit more variable. So if you're trying to write an email, maybe that could be a little bit higher. If you're, one of the use cases that we use a lot, especially with AI chat, is text to SQL. If there's one correct answer, you might not want that slider to be a little bit lower. You might want temperature to be a little bit lower because we want to make sure we're getting that correct answer and not introducing that randomness.
I think we have time for one last question.
We got it all. Everyone understands perfectly.
Everyone's got it.
Oh, thank you.